Why are Gen Zers like Millie Bobby Brown aging so badly? Written by Lydia Hawken. What has Millie Bobby Brown done to her face? Written by John Eli. Little Britain's Matt Lucas takes savage swipe at Millie Bobby Brown's new mummy makeover look. Written by Bethann Edwards. Amplifying an insult rather than questioning why a grown man is mocking a young woman's appearance. This isn't journalism. This is bullying.
Millie Bobby Brown cannot catch a break. Originally, I wasn't going to make this video, but this topic bothered me enough that I decided to discuss it. This girl's looks have been picked apart since she stepped into the forefront of the Hollywood scene. As someone who has followed her since Stranger Things, it's been heartbreaking to see Millie restrict herself over the years. Since receiving backlash for being too excessive in interviews, she's dialed down her personality on social media over the years. Now she is facing backlash over something she can't control: how she looks. People say she looks 30 and old, which I don't know who needs to hear this, but 30 is not old. I won't lie, when I was a child, I considered 30 to be old, or any age that was older than mine, to be frank. But since then, I've grown from that mindset. 30 is not senile, geriatric, or contrary to popular belief, old.
I started in the industry when I was 10 years old. I grew up in front of the world, and for some reason, people can't seem to grow up with me. Instead, they act like I'm supposed to stay frozen in time, like I should still look the way I did on Stranger Things Season 1. And because I don't, I'm now a target. The fact that adult writers are spending their time dissecting my face, my body, my choices is disturbing, and the fact that some of these articles are written by women makes it even worse. We always talk about supporting and uplifting young women, but when it comes down to it, it seems a lot easier to just tear them down for clicks. Disillusioned people can't handle seeing a girl become a woman, on her terms, not their own. I refuse to apologize for growing up. I refuse to make myself smaller to fit the unrealistic expectations of people who can't handle seeing a girl become a woman.
If you're a woman in Hollywood, or a woman, you can't breathe without being crucified. What you wear, how you act, how you look, how you're perceived, what people think of you, and how people think, you can't escape it. People have used celebrities like Millie Bobby Brown as justification for Gen Z looking old. Again, if I didn't reiterate my last point, Gen Z is not old. The youngest Gen Z is 13, with the oldest being 28. If you're above that age calling Gen Z old, then you might want to take a look in the mirror, because the call is coming from inside the house. At this point, it's just projection. If you don't encounter a lot of Gen Zers in your day-to-day, you may go off of what you see in mainstream media. However, what you see in the media does not equate to real life. If it were, every teenager you see would look like the cast of Euphoria. And if you've ever met a teenager in real life, you know that's the furthest thing from the truth. This always confused me because in high school, a lot of my peers and I were always mistaken for younger, and still are to this day. Now, I'm not just saying this to be like, I'm not like you old hags, I look young. To put it in perspective, in high school, I was confused for a freshman when I was a senior, and in college, I was confused for a high school dual enrollment student on multiple occasions. Speaking of, in college, I tutored high school students and worked in a photography studio that catered to high school photos. Most of these people looked their age, and if they did look older, it was over something they couldn't help, like being tall or their facial structure. I won't lie, there are some people that naturally look older than their age. But even if that is the case, why is that such a terrible thing? You can't help how you naturally look. Why talk about someone's natural appearance? Another thing that confuses me is that every generation is constantly being told that they're growing up too quick or look older. I remember watching a documentary on YouTube years ago, and the people in the yearbook looked significantly older than their age. The students in the yearbook admitted that they were inspired by their parents' style, down to how they dress, how they style their hair, and did their makeup. And this is the same generation that criticized Gen Z, and they look just as old. even in the early 2000s, there were articles discussing the youth looking older, so it's not fair to compare. There are some people that do try to look older than their age due to societal pressures. You're told to act a certain way and look a certain way from a young age. I remember in 5th grade when a boy was talking about girls and their bodies, or in middle school when girls would make remarks on who was growing breasts or who had an ass, and we were only 11 and 12 years old. We're told to care at a young age, act older than we are, so why when young people try to cater to those expectations, society is surprised. Every generation loves to talk down and discredit the younger generation for reasons I believe is a coping mechanism for them getting older. It was so much better in my days. You young people don't know the good life. Everyone is so lazy nowadays. Like, sure, Jan. Every generation does this, so I won't be surprised if and when Gen Z does the same to Gen Alpha, and when Gen Alpha does the same to the next generation. Hopefully we break the cycle because the generation after us is the ones that are going to be taking care of us. So we must be kind to one another. And I'm not trying to be cheesy or anything, but I believe it's just common courtesy. We know what it's like to be talked down by other generations, so why do the same with the generations that precede us? We should give one another some grace and slack, unless it's actual valid criticism. Here at The Misfit in Threads, we honor misfits for going against the grain and defying trends despite what the norm is. This week, the misfit that I would like to honor is Millie Bobby Brown.
I will not be shamed for how I look, how I dress, or how I present myself. We have become a society where it's so much easier to criticize than it is to pay a compliment. Why is it the knee-jerk reaction to say something horrible rather than just say something nice? If you have a problem with that, I have to wonder, what is it that actually makes you so uncomfortable? Let's do better, not just for me, but for every young girl who deserves to grow up without the fear of being torn apart for simply existing. Thank you.